Alright boys and girls, let's see what this Turbo S can do on launch control. Whoa! That was super duper. That was like a Taycan launch. That was like Turbo S 911. So guys, welcome back to RBR. Now you guys know I've got a particular fondness of anything with the words Turbo S written on the back of it recently, and today we're looking at the brand new facelift of the Panamera, specifically two models. One is this, the Panamera Turbo S, a more powerful version of the turbo, now replacing the turbo of old. Outside on the face of it, there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of changes, but there are many inside, so we're going to explore what those are, and then we'll explore one more model, which is the 4S Hybrid on the side of e-mobility, see what that drives like versus this, the sportiest version. So without further ado, let us begin the new Panamera facelift. So guys, today's episode of RBR is sponsored by The Ridge. They make some of the coolest wallets that I've ever seen in my life. I've chosen the carbon fiber forged one because carbon fiber in cars, it all works really well together. Now I like using slim wallets, but the ones I'm used to using can only carry 4 or 5 cards max, otherwise they start to misshape. This thing can hold 12 cards plus cash in the cash strap. I love the way how it fits so slimly in my pocket, so the things that should be bulging, bulge instead. And I've got peace of mind because it's got RFID blocking technology, so no one's gonna take money out of my cards without me knowing. And it also comes with a lifetime warranty. That's how proud the Ridge are of their product. And you also get free worldwide shipping and returns. So through this partnership, of course, I've got you guys a discount because I'm nice like that. All you need to do, go to ridge.com/RBR, use the code RBR, and you will get 10% off. So the code is RBR. Simple to remember, 10% off, probably the coolest wallet that us petrol heads could get. Support our sponsors and back to the episode. So guys, the first ever car we actually had on RBR from Porsche was in fact a Panamera. If you remember, it was our friend Ron, keeping it classy with the Ron Burgundy spec. And that car was a Panamera Turbo SE Hybrid Sport Turismo. Now that huge name also betrayed the huge weight. It was about 2,300 kg worth of V8 plus electrical drivetrain producing 670 brake, but it was the tamest 670 brake you'd ever feel in a sports saloon. The power to weight ratio was better than the standard turbo, but close enough to not justify that extra weight in my opinion. But the normal turbo suffered as well because it was pretty close to the brilliant and exciting GTS. Now this facelift Turbo S has raised the bar with many changes, and we have to dive in and see what those are. Firstly, unlike the Turbo SE Hybrid, you can throw away a couple of 100 kg worth of electrical systems. We don't need that. This is a pure V8 machine. Now let's talk about this revamped engine. We've got optimized turbochargers here with a different turbine layout. We've in fact got a revised crankcase. We've got revised pistons. Everything has been optimized for this car to produce a further 80 brake horsepower and 50 Newton meters, putting this at 630 bhp and a 0 to 60 of 3.1 seconds, which is damn fast. In fact, it's so fast that test driver Lars Kern has set a new Nürburgring record for the executive class of 7-minute 29 in this beast, which is super impressive for a car that essentially sits between something like a 5 Series and a 7 Series. Now there are a lot of changes underneath as well. We've got a whole new steering generation control here from the 911 and the Taycan, which will make that feel even better hopefully when we're driving. Your suspension has been modified as well, so we've got new front axle bearings, new dynamic engine mounts, and in fact your PASM, your PDCC, your Porsche torque vectoring, all modified on a model specific basis, and for the Turbo S all geared to make it even more dynamic. Our brakes are also 10 millimeters bigger on this Turbo S as well. So loads of changes going on, enough to make this more exciting than the old Turbo, and indeed more exciting in my opinion than the Turbo SE Hybrid that we previously tested. Now there's one more exciting one that again has been revamped, and that is the Panamera GTS. This now comes with 20 brake horsepower more, but the power delivery has been tweaked to be more like a naturally aspirated engine with the power building as the revs build with a higher rev limit as well. But the big seller in the UK, accounting for 60% of sales, which was a surprise to me, is the hybrid Panameras. And we got a new one today, which is the 4S Hybrid. This produces 560 brake horsepower, 0 to 60 of 3.7 seconds, which is pretty impressive from this V6 paired with the electrical engine as well. But with this car, we've got 30% range, more than before, thanks to a new battery. We've also got 20mm bigger brakes. Apparently we've got better brake feel as well. So again, we're going to take this out on a drive as well and see what it's like versus its sportier cousin. Now, if we just take a look at this version for a minute, you will see that the sport design package of the previous gen is now standard across these Panameras. So that's the only real visual change on the outside, alongside the new tail lights that I'm going to show you on the Turbo S. Now, the Turbo S is where the big changes have occurred, mainly on the front end. We've got a way more aggressive front fascia. When we looked at our previous car, which was Ron, you could see the front, not that aggressive, pretty soft. Whereas you look at the new one, particularly the side air intakes with the massive and aggressive lights, it really looks so much more impressive than the pre-facelift does. I really love the side air intakes with the lights that are quite separate, the vertical lines just underneath the front nose, everything looking that much more sportive than the previous car ever did. And honestly, in some ways, the way that the lights and the mouth are arranged remind me of my 911 Turbo S, which is only a great comparison to make. The rear has got a whole new rear light cluster with a different light animation inside it and a simpler design. It looks really good, and it looks a little bit darker to my eyes as well. Now, of course, there is a Sport Turismo version of the car available as well. I wish we had one here today because I love fast wagons, as you guys know. That's what it looks like. It's my pick of the bunch. I'm sure, like me, you guys are much more excited to see what this can do versus the Turbo SE Hybrid that I found quite heavy and clunky. This is a pure V8, lighter than that car, more power. But before we bring that V8 to life, let's head inside and see some of the changes that have been made in the interior. So guys, just a few changes inside the Panamera that I thought I'd mention before I show you the sound and then we go on the drive. So we've got a new multifunction steering wheel here, bringing it in line with 911 Taycan, etc. More important, as far as I was concerned, was the increase in resolution of the PCM system here. It's actually quite noticeable. It's like, you know, you went from a normal device to a retina screen one. It's kind of what it looks like here. Extremely sharp, and the computing power has gone up as well, so everything is a bit more responsive, especially important for something that's got so many widgets on the home screen. Also love this function when you get near to the screen. The PCM system knows that your hand is there and options come to the forefront, which is very clever. The car also has wireless Apple CarPlay now. You can also get a Porsche design clock up here instead of the standard one, which is great because they've been pushing the whole Porsche design watch thing across social media now, so you can get your car with an actual Porsche design one, which is cool. Really a big fan of these cup holders as well. I love the way that they sit flush when you close them, but they're really good size when they're open as well. But really, there's not a whole amount that changed inside. I really just wanted to show you what the V8 sounds like on Sport Plus. Shame that it's all rev limited like most modern cars. Now, before we open this V8 up on the roads, let's first take out the 4S Hybrid and see why it's the most popular Panamera in the range. It's so weird trying to get your head around driving a left-hand drive test car on typical UK roads. It's bizarre. I love it. I love the fact that we're still testing these cars. I'm glad Porsche are sending the cars to the UK and around the world rather than just not doing press test drives and just relying on digital launches, but it is weird. Now, the first thing you notice about this car, even in this 4S Hybrid, is how nice the steering is, how communicative it is. A lot of these larger cars, like I was driving the RS6 recently, when you're just driving straight, there's a lot of give in the little movements. So a little movement doesn't really give you that much of a response. Whereas even in this 4S Hybrid, tiny movements in the steering wheel, I can feel exactly what the front wheels are doing. And that's kind of what sets Porsche apart every single time with electronic steering. We know in the facelifted Panamera they're using stuff from 911 in terms of the steering, so no big surprise considering how good the 992 steering is. But this is kind of how you drive the 4S Hybrid. It's all about cruising. When you look at the breadth of ability of the Panamera model range, this is way more on the side of comfort. It's much more a kind of S-Class 7 Series type option versus the Turbo S that we're going to drive later, which is way more on the performance side of things. So there are 4 modes in the 4S for driving in your driving modes. First, e-Power, full EV, no use of the combustion engine. The second, hybrid, which will use the electrical side when it's more efficient to do so, otherwise it will switch to combustion engine, or you can add it into Sport or Sport Plus, and then that gives you the full power of both the combustion engine and the electrical engine together. What is pretty cool is how e-power will switch straight to combustion, and it's really indiscernible. I feel if you didn't have the lights directly underneath the tachometer here, I don't think you'd even notice it. And you kind of want that in the hybrid mode. You don't want to know when you're either driving electric or combustion. It's just got to work, and it does. It's really indiscernible between the two. As a petrol head, you don't want your combustion modes to be completely indiscernible, do you? So when we go into sport, you notice you still get some nice revs coming out of it. Nice build up, half decent sound on upshift, no real pops, bangs, burbles or anything like that, but you're not really going to expect that out of this. Also, I find the gearbox quite slow to react, which is not normal for me because I've driven all the sportier Porsches, but of course you've got a more comfort orientated setup in this 4S hybrid, so when you upshift and downshift there is a significant delay, and that is true of Sport Plus mode as well. But that's not really what I'm looking for in this car. What I'm looking for is comfort. While undoubtedly it is quick with its 570 brake, it never feels 570 brake. It just feels like it's got enough in order to carry the significant weight of this car around. I'm trying to think of a word that describes the way the 4S hybrid drives. I think it's effortless. It really feels like I'm driving something akin to 7 Series or S-Class in terms of how good the suspension is. Remember, yes, we are in left-hand drive car, but these are UK roads, notoriously bad. Yet the noise levels, the comfort of the suspension, the ease of the throttle response, the ease and comfort of the steering, the comfort setup of the gearbox, and I think this is your expectation coming into 4S hybrid. You're not expecting something that is overtly sportive, you're expecting something that's much more along the comfort and luxury side of the breadth of ability of the Panamera, and that's where the 4S really hits the nail on the head. Where the Turbo SE hybrid felt really heavy and you couldn't really discern the 670 brake horsepower, you're not going to discern the 500 odd in this car. And you will feel the weight when you drive it faster through the corners. Now for corners, Porsche have done the right thing, brought back the Turbo S with more power, without the weight problems of the SE hybrid. Let's see what that is like now on these same roads. All right, boys and girls, let's see what this Turbo S can do on launch control. Whoa! That was super duper. That was like a Taycan launch. That was like Turbo S 911. I was not expecting that. These heavy saloons often just have a little bit of lag, or they can't quite get the traction down. That was bloody fast. Shouldn't be surprised though, given 3.1 seconds. I'm pretty sure that is class leading 0 to 60 time. But what a difference. Now I'm in sport mode because, as usual, sport mode sounds better in Porsches. You can really rev it out. Get some nice little bangs which are far away, but I'm glad they're there. Yeah, the engine is wonderful. It's a great hot V setup, twin turbo V8. Great response. Exciting engine compared to a gearbox that is actually lightning quick in the Turbo S versus the sluggish response in the 4S, which is normal. Now just slowing it down for a second, going into normal mode, it's not quite the luxury cruiser that the 4S was, and I'm so pleased about that because the Turbo SE hybrid was just too far along the comfort side. Whereas with this, I can feel the texture of the road every bit that the wheels are traveling over, and I like that in a sports saloon. What a world of difference the Turbo S is versus the 4S. It's on a completely different level of performance, and that's exactly what you want, because this has got Turbo S on the back. That badge is no joke. I know because I own a 911 Turbo S. You can't just slap it on anything. It needs to be a very, very powerful and capable machine to deserve that badge. And this thing really is, the force of the acceleration is mad. It is so telling of how tame the 670 brake felt in the Turbo SE hybrid, because weight is such a huge factor in cars like this. This being lighter, even though it's got 40 odd less, feels so much quicker than that car did. And honestly, I think the V8 soundtrack it's just so much better. You get a really, really strong rumble. Now, this is that same asymmetrically placed sports exhaust system as the new GTS will have as well. And it makes a big difference. Clearly, Porsche trying to find ways to stop this reduction of sound that's happening in newer engines and still allowing us, while not sounds that are as loud, but certainly as pleasurable. Oh, listen to that. Oh, I love it. So undoubtedly speed was one metric for me, and this Turbo S kills it versus the SE Hybrid. So much faster that it feels scary on the road, and I'm talking levels of scary that you would equate with, you know, GT63S, M8, etc. Even though this is a slightly larger car and more luxurious than those, this feels as fast and as rapid. But versus something like M8, the steering is so much better. It's so much better than the RS6. The speed paired with the lovely V8 rumble really makes it an emotional experience. Now, speed is one side of it. The other side of the Turbo SE Hybrid that just wasn't as enjoyable as, say, the GTS was handling. Now, as we said, we've shaved many hundreds of kgs off, thanks to there being no electrical engine in this, and the car is so much better for it. A lot of the other journalists were saying it's more nose heavy than the V6 in the 4S, but you know what? That really, for me, fades into the background because A, the new steering is so good, but B, being lighter, it's just a completely different car in handling versus the SE Hybrid. Wonderful turn in. I know exactly where the wheels are. What a great steering system. Again, I really love the steering, and I often talk to professional drivers and they always explain good steering, and they start doing this kind of holding a china teacup thing with their fingers. But I kind of get what they mean, because the littlest of inputs in this car makes the wheels turn, but you know exactly how much they're turning and where the car's going immediately. This idea of feedback. And that's what this Panamera Turbo S is like. You can kind of do this and you know exactly where the wheels of the car are. This car really makes the case for me of how good a pure combustion car can be versus these new petrol hybrid 700-800 brake horsepower alleged cars that are going to be coming in the future. I think, yeah, the horsepower figure is great, but the weight is just too much to enjoy as much as we are in this particular car. I know you guys can see on my face when I'm excited about a car and when I'm not. With the Turbo SE Hybrid, yes, I enjoyed the sports response mode, but everything else was just not dialed up enough for me. This, I think you can tell, I really love the new Turbo S. Really, if you care about driving dynamics, steering feel, exhaust sound, then forget about the RS6. Sport Turismo in the Panamera Turbo S is the performance wagon to have. So guys, that's the 4S Hybrid and the Turbo S Panamera. I hope you enjoyed that. I think I've said it enough. For me, the Turbo S was so much more exciting than the SE Hybrid. Pure combustion car, better sound, better sensation of speed, better handling, just all round a much more enjoyable experience for the petrol head than the SE Hybrid. So if you enjoyed that, please do like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you guys next time.